Today, I'm joined by someone whose story beautifully intertwines leadership, faith, and legacy, and that is Debbie Simmons. Debbie is a passionate leader, author, and speaker with over 14 years of non-profit and ministry leadership experience. She's the founder and CEO of Anchor Point, a Christ-centered organization that empowers families through pregnancy services, education, and trauma-informed support. As a mother to 9 adopted children and 4 more in heaven, Debbie brings deep empathy and wisdom to the conversation around legacy, leadership, and healing. She's also the author of The Heart of Legacy, Living a Focused, Faithful, and Fearless Life, where she shares her journey through grief, calling, and courageous obedience. In our conversation, Debbie opens up about what it really means to trust God in leadership, even when the path doesn't make sense, and how to lead others with humility, submission, and purpose. So grab your notebook, grab your pen, grab your favorite hot drink, grab a water, and let's dive into this heartfelt, faith-filled conversation with Debbie. I hope you enjoy it. Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Woman of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in. Now, before we jump in, this was a big week for me. I released a brand new digital product called the Imposter Syndrome Blueprint. And because it was my birthday, I gave you guys 40% off for my 40th birthday. However, the 40% has now expired. However, it is an insanely good price that you can still get the Imposter Syndrome Blueprint at. Now, in the Imposter Syndrome Blueprint, what we do is I offer you 2 masterclasses. The one masterclass is on how Jesus modeled confident leadership. Now, I've gone much deeper into this in this masterclass on how Jesus did that versus what I've done on this show. So it's a much longer episode as well. So it's audio only. It's a private podcast. So if you really want to know how Jesus modeled confident leadership in a more intensive way, I provide you with a workbook. There's some reflections in there. Then this is really a good one for you, because in the next masterclass, so there's 2 masterclasses in this blueprint. In the next one, we look at why female Christian leaders struggle with imposter syndrome so much. But then I don't leave you there. I actually give you the blueprint on how you can overcome imposter syndrome. And the reason why these 2 masterclasses go hand in hand is because Jesus is our ultimate goal. It's the ultimate goal of leadership. It's the ultimate mirror of what we want to achieve. And so that's why I went into much more detail and provide you with a workbook in these 2 masterclasses, because I truly feel that we need something to work towards. And if we know exactly how Jesus dealt with leadership, because there was many times where the disciples did not follow him. There was many times where the disciples were uncertain. There were many times when the disciples said, "Oh, wow, he really is the Son of Man." And then Jesus said to them, "But why didn't you know that yet? Of all the things that you've seen, why are you so surprised about that?" So Jesus called a spade, okay? And so in this masterclass, I go deep into that. But then, of course, the follow-up of that is your blueprint on how you are going to use that to overcome imposter syndrome. Now, for the price that you get, I'm giving you bonuses worth $114 as well. So you will get a scripture snap pack, which is 12 go-to verses and declarations to replace fear with truth. It's perfect before meetings or whenever imposter syndrome creeps in. And then the second bonus that you're going to get is Anchored in Prayer Journal. It's a 7-day scripture-based journal to help you overcome fear, renew your mind, of course in Christ, and lead with Christ-centered confidence. And it's yours absolutely free when you grab the imposter syndrome blueprint. Simply go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/blueprint if you want to learn more. And like I said, it's an insanely good price because I'm committed to you overcoming imposter syndrome. So go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/blueprint to go and check out the imposter syndrome blueprint. Let's jump into our conversation with Debbie Simmons. Welcome, Debbie, to the Women of Faith in Leadership podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm fabulous, and I'm glad to be with you.
Oh, so good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. So why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us what is the topic that we're going to be talking about today?
Sure, great. So a little bit about me, just so you can kind of know, is I am a CEO of a rather large nonprofit here in the United States and Houston, Texas, called Anchor Point. And then I started that from kind of scratch. So built that up into what it is today. Certainly not just me. God kind of led all that, but I got to be a part of that. And then I am a mom of 9 adopted children. And in our journey, we have a journey of kind of getting pregnant when we couldn't get pregnant, and we ended up with quads, and they passed away in our arms. And then ultimately, that led us to adoption, and ultimately that led to the Anchor Point story. So that is kind of, I come out of corporate America, I'm an engineer by training, and God has just taken me on this road that has taken us different places. And I don't know about your listeners, but for me, none of my journeys are straight lines. They all kind of have little twists and turns and curves. And, this wasn't on my original plan, but this is kind of how God has taken me where He wants me to be and how I can best be a part of His kingdom. So today I thought it would be kind of fun is talking with some of your people that are looking at leadership as, you are living a legacy even in the midst of chaos or challenging times. And I think as leaders, we all face that. So I think that would be a fun place to kind of start today.
Yeah, I agree with that one. There's no leadership line is ever straight, and it's never easy because
Yes.
leadership is full of various challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, well, I'm just want to say I'm really sorry to hear about your quads passing away in your arms, but I think what's so beautiful, what you had said, is that how that experience that you had led you on to something else. And I think that's the one thing. It's a mindset thing for leaders, is that if
Mm-hmm.
we're going through a tough situation or we're going through adversity, there's a reason for it. There's always a reason for it. And we can't see the reasoning in the moment when we're going through that tough time. But in the end, we can see what God meant by that and why we had to go through that. So there's actually a lot to unpack there. But let's start with your CEO journey first. So I made 2 points here that I want to explore further with you. Let's start with your CEO journey. So you're in this non-for-profit space at the moment. You started it from scratch. So run us through what was that journey as a CEO, starting a company, even if it's non-for-profit, because I think, there's various challenges in not-for-profit versus profit companies.
Mm-hmm.
But being a CEO, I mean, that's the C-suite. That's pretty challenging and pretty tough. And coming from corporate America yourself, you've got quite a lot of experience and valuable, information that you can definitely share with the listeners. So yeah, just run us through your journey and, what was the most significant thing? If you forget what I say, it's fine because I'm asking a lot of questions now. Significant thing that you had taken out from being a CEO.
Well, I will tell you, and starting it from the beginning, being the founder. First of all, we got to back up a little bit because this wasn't on my plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, I didn't grow up as a little girl going, "Oh, I'm super excited about developing a ministry." We have to realize that at this point in my life and my journey, we had adopted for the first time. And ultimately, we adopt 3 times. But our first time, I have 5 children with trauma backgrounds in my house. I am working full time at that time in ministry, running prison ministry across 4 states in the United States. And so I'm doing full time ministry. I am doing full time uh, mission filled work in my home. And God is like, I want you to do this. And I am like, you have got the wrong girl. I am not your girl. I'm going, dude, I'm doing all this stuff already for you. And he's like, this is what I want you to do. So I, in my, stubborn little person that I am, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. This is too much sacrifice. It's too much time. It's too much money. No, you go find someone else. No, 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 not me. But God never gives up on us. He just keeps on when he knows it's what's ultimately best for us, right? And I had to go through God allowing my job to be taken away in like a week. And it was so painful. And after the dust had settled on that, God was like, okay, do you have time now? And I was like, okay, I'll be obedient. I'll do this. But it was a surreal thing because I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But I don't know how to start this business. I don't know what I'm doing. And, and I don't want to I still don't want to do it, but I'll do it. And I had to convince people what's different about the for-profit world and the nonprofit world is in the for-profit world, I generally have something to sell, right? So in the nonprofit world, not only do I have to figure out how to get income, I have to convince people to buy into a dream and give their money to a dream and trust me that I can make the dream happen. Right. So that makes that's even in my mind, a much more complicated process than me selling a book or having widgets to sell, and stuff like that. So I'm sitting here telling people I have got this group of about 200 people, and I'm like, well, this is what we're going to do. And here's our dream. And here's our vision of how we're going to accomplish it. And in my head, I'm sitting here going, what am I doing? I am crazy. I don't know if I can do this. But that's the sweet spot where God wanted me. And God wanted me, along with some others that came alongside me, to trust him in the process. And I think as a leader, for profit, nonprofit, what he really wants is he wants us to be humble and to be submissive to him, in submission, and to follow him with the next steps on our journey. So literally, I didn't have a clue. I don't know how to do anything. And so I just go, okay, what's the next thing I do? So I just did the next thing, and I did the next thing, and I did the next thing. And as we were faithful doing those things, God began to open and close doors as appropriate. And, if I would have held on really tight to it has to be a certain way, then I would have run into trouble. But because I came with my hands open going, okay, God, this is your deal. You're just going to have to show us how to do it. And I didn't hold too tightly. He could easily shift us into how we started. So I think that's something that I have carried all these years is this is his big picture. I get to be a part of it in whatever way I'm serving and let him open and close doors for me. So, if you start from the bottom, you do everything. I've cleaned toilets. I've been in the client room. I've raised money. I've dusted rooms. I've built donor packets. You name whatever needs to be done, I'm going to do it. I've paid bills. I've done everything. The first probably 3 years of the ministry, I worked for free and I paid people with money out of my bank account. And it was really funny because it was, what I would call my husband, I would say, hey, dude, I just wrote a $5,000 check to the ministry because I got to pay payroll. And I would tell you, don't spend any money. And he's like, is there any money in the bank? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't look. And I said, I'm just trusting him that God's going to take care of it. And God did every time. We never went broke. We were never destitute. He always made sure my family was taken care of. And we've always been very blessed. But that was me learning to use my faith muscle and get it stronger each and every time you would have to stretch and to grow to go to the next level. It was a very exciting time when we were in a place where I didn't have to write personal checks to cover things, but I could actually just give what I wanted to give, right? That was like a major success point. And so it was like, hey, what's the first thing we can conquer? And let's do that. And then one of the things that I always challenge, whether it was a volunteer or a staff person or myself, is what is it that we can do that only we can do in our positions? And then what is it that we're doing that we can delegate to another staff person, or we can delegate to a volunteer and empower them to do what they need to do? And then we can focus on the things that only we can do. And that's a real challenge. I think that's probably our biggest growth point as we've gone through Anchor Point, is that's a real challenge because a lot of us go, it's a lot of time and effort to train someone else, especially volunteers, because volunteers come and go. You get them trained and they're doing great. And then what do? They get a job. And I'm like, okay, now we're back to zero, and so you're constantly doing that, but it's worth it in the end, but it's time consuming at the beginning. But what we fear sometimes is the reason we hold on to certain things is that we fear that our job's going to become, we're going to work our way out of a job and we won't have a job anymore. But the reality is God has more for us to do. He has more people to serve, bigger dreams for us to dream. And he can't let us do it unless we're releasing things and trusting people to do them below us. So for me, throughout the years, it has been learning to let go of things. I was in a meeting today and I was working with one of my staff members, and I was like, I just can't do that anymore. I don't have the bandwidth and I don't have the energy, and I need someone else on the staff to focus on that because we're asking me to do all these other things that only I can do to become a thought leader and be out there and write books and do these types of things. And I just don't have bandwidth. And so for us to get to the next level, I have to continue to release things, and, trust that staff are going to do it. And I got to be okay that they're not going to do it exactly the way that I'm going to do it. But,
Mhm.
a lot of times it can be better, but it may just be their way is a little different. So I have to be very careful about coming back and micromanaging them and going, no, you can't do that. Da, 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 da. So I try to be very careful on that. And so those are some of the things I think are the big things. And, can we dream big dreams? Can we do big things? But we can only do it if we get people and structure in place so that we can be free to do these other things. And that's how Anchor Point has grown, is we've added divisions and different things like that. And we have to be willing to, everybody in my organization knows that they can try something and they can fail. And the thing is, fail fast and let's learn from it. And then let's keep on going because we're going to grow. Right. And those are the things that I think for the staff and for volunteers, that they need to know that it's a safe environment to do that. And it's okay. And we'll figure our way through it. And then the next time we're going to be better, and, we'll go on. So those are some of the big takeaways that I think over the years have really helped me. And then I think the one other thing for me and for my staff is that, we have to understand that my biggest job is mentoring and loving and coaching the people that work directly for me. It's not
Mhm.
for me to be doing the volunteers or be in a client room or something like that. And then my staff need to either work with their staff or work with the volunteers that work with them directly, and understand that those are ministries in themselves. Along with, if we look at the donor side, I've got to see that as a ministry in itself
Mhm.
too, of loving them and encouraging them and walking alongside them. And so if we get caught up with being stuck in the client room, then we can't be servicing the staff or the volunteers that we need and empowering them to be with the clients. So that's a really hard thing for us to get sometimes, is we want to get down in the weeds, and we have to work so hard to not get trapped down there, because there are things that only I can do. Only I can do. And they may not all be my fun things, but they are things that only I can do. And if we want to take it to the next level, I got to be able to do those things, or anyone in my staff. That applies to all of us. So those are some of the big things.
Mm. Well, there was I was making notes as you were speaking. There was a couple of really powerful things there for any CEO or any leader to implement, and we'll get back to that in a minute. what, before we carry on, because we're talking about anchoring point a lot, what is the purpose of anchor point? What does it do? And yeah, tell me more about anchor point. I want to
Okay,
understand
sure.
that better.
Yeah. Okay. So Anchor Point, when we created it, our goal was to really help families thrive. Because a lot of our families struggle. And so we actually have a family network of services that we do. Our first is our medical clinic, where we work with young ladies who are struggling with the decision of whether to carry the child that they have. And they're overwhelmed with their situation. They don't know what to do. They don't know what decision to make. And so we have medical services that work alongside them to provide them an opportunity to have information and everything. And then for those that do make the decision, because we can't make the decision for them, for those that I find that about 80 to 90% of those, just being in a safe place, being able to talk through their options, will choose life for their child.
Mm.
Well, I don't know about you, but my children didn't come with instruction manuals. So I had to have someone help me figure this stuff out, right? And so then we go over to our Hope Family Center, where we do case management, and we begin to walk alongside of them. And what are your stressors? What's going on? What do you need educationally? What do you need physically? What do you need spiritually, mentally? What all do we need to for you to come along and be this mom that you want to be, right? This great mom, and dads too. So they come along. And then we have a maternity home for girls who are homeless that are pregnant. And that is an 18-month program where we are working to get them where they can be independent and take care of their babies and have jobs and everything. And then we have our parenting, our Hope Community initiatives, which are parenting, prenatal classes, additional seminars that they can do. And we run therapeutic camps for families that have adopted or have kids that are struggling. And the parents are just going, I don't know what to do with that child. I just don't know what to do. I can't connect with them. I don't get them. They're misbehaving, and they are maladaptive behaviors, or they're trauma kids. Like my kids are all adopted. They come from trauma backgrounds, and they have complexities that we've got to help these parents walk through. And so we do these camps, and then we do recovery groups for sexual abuse, abortion recovery, trauma, to help people be healthy so that they can be the people that God's called them to be. So that's just a little bit of everything to help families thrive is what we're doing.
Wow. Wow. I'm so blown away by the fact that you were obedient to what God wanted you to do, because would you have ever have imagined it being what it is today, way back when?
No.
Mm.
No, no, no. It's never, I mean, it's always amazing, and it's such a privilege to be able to do it, even though it's really hard.
Mm.
And it's taken a lot out of me, and my family has sacrificed to be a part of it. But I mean, for the thousands of lives that we get to touch every year, I judge success by how tall the kids are. And, some of them are 15, 16 years old now. And I'm like, it's amazing. And these little people might not be here if this wouldn't have been available to this mama to help her figure her way. And so to me, it's just, I love to see the parents thrive, and I love to see the kids thrive. And any woman that's struggled with abuse and abortion and stuff like that, to see freedom from those types of things is just amazing. And so you get to see God's hand at work all the time. And so you have to remember those stories when you're, doing the budgets, and you're doing payrolls, and you're doing all these things, is that this is a life change that happens. And the stuff that we get to put in place behind is so powerful, to be able to watch God do the things that he does in the lives of people. And we get to have a front row seat.
Mm.
And so that's what's really cool, I think, for me.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's really amazing, Debbie. Well done. That's hats off to
Thank
you
you.
for doing that, because that's really amazing. And I feel even more honored that you're on the show now, because I think, sometimes as leaders we can forget that there's a bigger picture. We get so
Yeah.
like flaps on our eyes like a horse. I'm thinking about that horse with these flaps. We can get so focused on our problems and on our things, but we forget that there's always a bigger picture. There's always reasons why these things have to happen. And so I love what
Mhm.
you had shared about being a CEO, and those the takeaways, because one of the things you mentioned is that you have to do what only you can do, and you have to delegate the rest, and then
Mhm.
trust that the people are going to do it right, even though it's not 100% your way, the way you would have done it, but it's their way. And I agree. When I was in a director's role, for the first couple of years in being in that role, I didn't have an assistant director. And so a couple of years in, because we had expanded so much, I just couldn't do it all by myself anymore. So I got an assistant director on board. And so I had to like hand off a lot of tasks to her, and I had to just let go that it wasn't going to be the same way as what I had done them. You just have to let it go. And I
Yeah,
love
well,
that.
and
Yeah.
that's I think what is so important about, okay, can we lay down what are the important things of it?
Mm.
What are the standard operating procedures, and things that we wouldn't sacrifice on, and then give a lot of freedom for creativity. And so I always tell someone new coming into the organization, I'm like, okay, here's the first thing I need you to do. I need you to learn our chaos, and I need you to keep that chaos going. And then let's figure out how to get it better. But learn it
I love
first.
that.
Don't kill the ship. We got to still do the things we got to do. But I know that you will bring creativity and new eyes and stuff like that. So just work with the chaos, and then let's figure our way to making it better. And that has been very powerful for people to be able to successfully maneuver into the organization from that
Mm.
perspective.
Yeah, I love that you invite them in to come and sort out the chaos, because a lot of the time, us as leaders, we want to take charge. It's my way or the highway. But if
Hmm.
a new person comes in and you actually invite them to say, okay, learn our chaos, but then let's learn how we can make it better, that's an open invitation to somebody to be involved and to
Yeah.
have a say and to have autonomy in the business. Whereas a lot of the times, when we are inducting new people, we're onboarding them, it's kind of like, okay, well, this is the way we do things here, and there's not a lot of opportunity
Yeah.
for that person to have a say. So that's great. And then you mentioned as well the mentoring, the loving, I love that, and then the coaching, that's important for
Mhm.
your role. So why would you say somebody like you has to do that, for those leaders who have got that question, who are not naturally people who coach or who mentor, and who really struggle to work with others? How can they get into that, or how can they learn that skill?
Well, I would say, first of all, one of the biggest things that we can do is just love people and value relationships. So I have to fight hard as a CEO that really, I would say probably 95% of the issues that come up in our organization are all a breakdown in communication. It's always that. And part of it is assumption, which is the worst form of communication. And then just miscommunications, or Satan gets in there and twists words and whatever. And what we as a team have to do is we have to value each other and trust each other enough to really enter into those kind of challenging conversations, for clarity's sake. And so there's been plenty of times where someone's done something or called me or whatever. And I'm like, do not leave. I'm coming to the office. I'll be there, and we're going to work through this because I value you. And you are more important to me than the issue at hand. And so the relationship that you and I have is going to make or break the organization. And Satan's number one tool is he wants to screw that up with people, because it's the best way to kill a ministry.
Mm.
And, to kill any, private sector, any type of thing, is for him to get in there and stir up anything within the organization. So we have to fight for it. So I would say, hey, if you love people, you do hard things and have hard conversations because you love people. If you
Mm.
don't, then do you really love them? Right.
Mm.
And I want my people to be successful. I want them to be better than me. I want them to outshine me in everything that they can do. And so if I want nothing but their good, then I can get in there and be willing to go, okay, let's have this hard conversation, because I trust your heart, I trust my heart, and I know that there's just something that's tweaked in between there that we got to get straight. And it's been invaluable over the years for us to do that. But I would say if you've never done that, you never invested in your people, I would just say the first step for me is always, I am just curious. seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? And so I just ask a lot of questions, and I want to know what makes you tick, and what are your kids like, and where are your stressors in life. So if I have a staff member going, I had a staff member that had a child that died of a drug overdose, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. She called me in the middle of the night, and she was sitting outside the hotel room, and I was like, "I'll be there. I'm coming. I will come and sit by you by the door, and we will just do life together." And I think we have that is so rare a commodity, that it just stands out. And then because I care about her as a person,
Mm.
the work, we can work through all the work things. And so just being curious, just asking questions, help me understand why you did it that way, or how do you doing this, or what do you want to do? What are your goals in life? I mean, I've had plenty of conversations where I've said, "Hey, I want to promote you, but if I promote you, it means you do this." And that might not even be your heartbeat. Maybe you still only want to be in a client room. So let's figure out what's going to work for you, because I want you to be where you believe God wants you to be, and let's help you thrive. Now, I
Mm.
think I see this, but that doesn't mean I'm right. So I think just being willing to be curious and go after getting to know them and love them. And obviously, I can't do that with everyone. So I have to do that with the ones closest to me. And then I use the other ones to touch the other ones. But, if I have someone down the line who's struggling, I'm going to figure out a way to reach out to them, but they may not have as much close time with me. But whatever I can do to seek to understand and just be inquisitive and just love people. Um,
Mm.
that's how you do it. That's how I do it. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's valuable. And you mentioned that, which is something that's extremely true to whether it's non for profit or for profit, is the fact that you have other people who help you in that space. So you can't maybe love on everyone because if you've
mhm,
got a Fortune 500 company or something like that, there's a lot of people in there. So
yes,
does that mean you have a leadership team? So do you have a leadership team that you work with, or the heads of
yes. So
department, or what does that look like?
right. So I have two or three kind of key leaders, four at the most usually, that are really close to me, that are responsible for big chunks of what we do.
Okay.
And those four people then have either staff or volunteer kind of combinations that work under them, to make the ministry happen. So that's where you go. And matter of fact, what I do with most of my team is I'm like, okay, what does your dream organization look like? And we kind of draw it out, and it's got like 50 positions on it. And then I'm going, okay, write down all the people that you have working for you and which positions they have, and then put your name in every other square. And, when you see your name in 25 squares, you're going, no wonder I'm tired, right? And I'm going, okay, now you know how to recruit a volunteer to take over this piece, right? And so that's how we built the organization, is continuing to do that over and over again to be able to work our way out of our positions. Because that anybody that comes in our organization, I always tell them, your job is to work your way out of your position.
Mm.
It always is. And so, what does it take to do that? And we want to keep that as one of our common goals. And, you know, in ministry, we can always expand and do more. And because we're not a big 500, Fortune 500 company, we have the ability to do some of that flexibility. In
Mm.
big organizations, you might not have that, but you still have those same kind of thought process that you can put in place to be able to be effective for that.
I absolutely love. Well, you've got such good visions, and the way you run Anchor Point. So, that's so cool because you just mentioned. I love that brainstorming session that you do to say, okay, this is what the ideal company looks like, and then who do you have in that, and then put yourself in everything. That's so amazing because I think that's actually an activity that every single leader listening to the show can do with their current team right now, and then to say,
Yes.
okay, but how can we either recruit, from then from a financial position, maybe we can move the budget around, maybe we can, move somebody else into a position where they would be able to do those two roles at the same time,
Yes.
like
Mhm.
50-50 or something. And then that's how you can restructure your company actually to um, to get all those roles covered, so that you as the CEO or as the person that's in that key leadership role is not filling 25 other positions or wearing
I know.
25 different
Yeah.
hats.
But seeing 25 pictures of yourself on the thing, it's like,
Oh
oh my
my
gosh,
gosh.
oh my gosh, this is why I'm having so much trouble. But I mean, that's such a clarity exercise, right?
Totally.
And it's freeing because then you know how to you know how to begin to solve the problem.
Mm.
And that's what I think is really the key, is that a lot of times we're just overwhelmed, and then it's like we never take the number one thing we can do is not work in the business as CEOs, but work on the business. And so that is the on the business side that if we, I had to move my office out of the main offices. So I'm rarely in the office. I do go in there, but it's because if I go in there, I am sucked right in to the day to day stuff, and
Mm.
I can never get to this on the business stuff. And then the people I want to empower, people just automatically give me reverence over them because I'm the CEO. And so they're going to come to me naturally versus going to them, and they don't get empowered to do the things. And so that's, but it took me like literally taking my office out of the building.
Wow.
so, so
But there's a lot of relevance in what you just said, because I think as leaders, we feel guilty. We want to be able to show our team that we also can do their jobs. We want to show them that we deserve to be in our jobs. And so this is something that I literally felt myself at some point in time. I felt as if, because I had the same. I was actually, my office was so close to the people that I was working that their interruptions was just constant. And so then a couple of years in, my CEO actually suggested, well, let's move your office because you can't deal with so many interruptions. You're the one that's meant to be working on the business and not in the business. And
yes.
that's what I was constantly doing. And it changed every single, like it changed. It was a bit troublesome with the relationship, I must say. I really then had to purposefully go and make a point of, and it forced me as well, which is good, to have to keep those relationships going. But it also meant that my leadership team, so I appointed a leader in every single space, that they were getting empowered, just like you said. So I would meet with that
Mhm.
leadership team on a fortnightly basis. They would know exactly what was going on, so that I was not the point of call all the time. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah, so
and
that's great.
I agree with that. I have to be very, very it's so funny. I'm so task focused and can be like if I run in the office, I'll just dash in to get something and dash out. I literally schedule like 30 minutes to be in the office. So
Mm.
I can just walk around, talk to people, say hello. But I mean, because I am such a task focused driven person, I have to put it on my schedule. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be the social person right now. And
Yeah,
that's how I
yeah.
have to put my hat on and I walk in the door because I do want to value those people and I do want to have the relationships and I want them to know I care. And they would feel like I didn't care at all if I just breezed in and out. And that is not my heartbeat. That just happened to be my focus for the day. And so I do have to be, just like you said, extremely intentional about making sure that I do the connection piece versus getting so task driven when I'm running in and out the door.
So good. So let's move on to the other point. So the other second point that I had written down was the adversity part, like leading through adversity. And so you have experienced quite a lot of that throughout your life. But what's beautiful about what you said is that you've used that as a stepping stone, and that God had a purpose with
Yeah.
everything. Although you
Hmm.
lost those beautiful souls, you also gained 9 new ones.
Yes.
So so amazing. So when it comes to leading with adversity, what advice do you have for those leaders who's literally in a moment where they are struggling, they're wondering if they should actually even be in this leadership role? They feel unworthy to be leaders, because that's what a lot of the listeners are saying. They feel unworthy, they struggle with self-doubt. What advice do you have for them?
Yes. So I here's what I learned, and I learned this through the boys, and it has been invaluable for me for most of my life, is that when we are in a crisis, or when, I like to tell people, there's speed bumps in the road, and sometimes we hit them at 5 miles an hour. Sometimes we do them at, like, really slow speeds. And then sometimes we hit them at 100 miles an hour. And so, no matter the situation, the challenges that we're in, usually the number one thing that comes up for all of us is this question of why? Why me, God? Why is it this way? Why? And what happens is that's a very inward focusing uh question that we answer. So when I held the boys in my arms as they died that night in the hospital, why was the question that was on my mind. But God wanted me to give up my why question. And the reason is because no matter the situation that we sit in, nobody can give you an answer that is going to relieve the why. It wouldn't matter what anyone would have said to me about losing boys. It would never make it better. My boys wouldn't be back. It just wouldn't. And so I had to begin to trust God with that question. And what I've learned as I've gotten older is when we get to eternity and I'm there, the why question won't matter, because there's no sorrow, there's no pain, there's joy, there's Jesus, there's my boys, and it won't matter then. So God is asking me when I was losing my boys, He's like, I need you to give me your why question and trust me with that. And a lot of us like to hold on to that because that justifies why I'm sitting where I'm sitting. And he challenged me to change my question. And the question is, how do I survive? Because I have a lot of pain in my heart, or I have a difficult situation going on, and I don't know my way out of it. I don't know how to lead. I don't know how to do these things. I don't know how to, I wanted children. I don't know how to have children. I can't seem to figure that out. And I figure other things out. And as I did that and I put that stake in the ground, sometimes I could go about, 30 seconds and I'd have to put the stake in the ground again. Or sometimes I would go 5 minutes, or eventually it leads to days and it leads to years, where I can go now. Pretty much, I never ask why about the boys anymore, right? But as I did that and I learned how to survive, I took the next best step. And God, because it's not the next right step, it's the next best step, because we don't always know that our step is right, but we can take a step, then God can be able to work in that space. And as I began to do that, He began to show me how to work my way out of the pit that I was in and to trust Him with it. And then the question changed at some point. It became, okay, I feel like I've survived, right? I feel like I've gotten to the other side. And then the next question was, how do I thrive? Because I don't want to be decades removed from losing boys and still be stuck, like, in the same emotional space. I want you to redeem this story. I want you to make something good of it. How do I do that? And so then that's a really sweet space, because he's going, okay, now we can do something big, and I can redeem your story, and I can take it to the next level, and I can use it to bring glory to him. So I found, like, if I'm working, this is a funny leadership story, but when after COVID, I had a employee I needed to bring back to work, and ended up getting sued. Okay, I got my first lawsuit. All right. And I was just like so overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, God, how in the world, and why this? And I was trying to, I was trying to do everything right, and just overwhelmed by the whole thing. And then he's like, change your question. How do you survive? Okay, I need to do this. I need to check on this. And they may not be big things. I might literally be like, okay, I need to sit still and breathe for a second,
Mhm.
and then figure out, okay, I need to call the attorney. I need to do this. I need to figure out this. I need to figure out how to communicate to the rest of the staff, and I could slowly begin to figure my way out of it. And how we walk through that. Adversity speaks volumes to how my people can follow, because they're going to face adversity, and they're going to need to know how to walk through it well. And what honors God in our situations as leaders is when we do that well, nothing brings him more glory than that. And it shows people that you can survive something and ultimately thrive, but ultimately they can do it too. right? And so for me, that is the underlying thing that has been something that I've just learned and grown with over the years. And it applies to every situation I get in. So my staff will come into my office and they'll have some big drama in their life. They think it's a 10 on the Richter scale, and they're in there with me and they're like, ah. And I'm like, first of all, I need you to breathe so we can get through this and your prefrontal cortex will re-engage so you can think. And then I'm like, no worries. None of this is a surprise to God. He's not surprised where we sit,
Mm.
and he will show us the way out. And they're like, well, how are we going to get out of it? And I said, I don't know, but he's going to show us. And so we're going to do the next best thing. And we're going to learn to ask, how do we survive? And ultimately, how do we thrive? And that for me has been the way to get through every challenging thing that I run into from that perspective.
Mm. Oh, that's such a good perspective. So give up your why and ask, how do I survive? And then move on from how do I thrive? I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And there's something beautiful in thriving, right? And I know my story is special and people like to hear my story of losing boys and tragedy and overcome. But you know what? I mean, we all face hard things and we all have these stories. And I'm just going, that's just a universal principle that we
Mm.
can apply to any situation. And it's it's served me well through the years. And so I just love it when people can pick up on that.
Mm. And that's a very good principle that you probably use at anchor point for the families as well, because I can just imagine those families coming in with difficulties and saying, "But why me? Why is this happening to us as a family?" And I mean, to be honest, on a personal note, we have asked the same because we've got neuro diverse children, and sometimes I have wondered, God, why did you choose me? I'm so unqualified and so inadequate. Why me? Or why us? But I think it's so valuable that not only then for the listeners of the show as leaders, but you can also really implement that in your personal life as well. And I think that can really transform your relationship with God as well, because He doesn't want you just to focus on why me, feeling sorry for yourself, but rather trusting Him and saying, okay, but what can I rather do to survive? Mm.
Yeah, and thrive, right? Because
And then
he's
thrive.
that's what
Yeah.
he's into, right? And if you take, I mean, you pick any person in the Bible, you pick David, you pick Paul, you pick all, they had like numerous hard things they went through, right? And I'm like going, that doesn't sound like fun to me. That doesn't
Yeah.
sound like fun to me. That doesn't sound like fun to me. And I'm going, I don't know how I would get through that, right? And but they had to ask the same type of questions because they had to figure their way through to be able to do the next thing. And what God knows is when we can figure our way through that like that, He knows that He can trust us and that we're ready for the next level. Right. So it's never not about doubt because we always have it. We have 9 children, all from hard places. There are times my husband and I lay in the bed and we both go, God, if you're not real, we're really dumb. We made a big bad choice in doing this because you better be real because we have no idea how to get out of this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
work our way through this. And so these are if you and I can realize that all these feelings that we have are very normal and it's just Satan's way to stop us. And
Mm.
if we can just bottle that up and go, okay, we're going to go to what we know and we trust, and we're going to hold on to that. And Daddy God, you're going to lead us. And this gets us out of here and gets us up to higher level thinking. And when we have that, we can breathe and we can have hope. And we know that God's never failed. He always comes through. Right. And so I told my husband, I'm like, when we started the ministry, I'm like, we're going to start this ministry. And I was like, we're at the top of a cliff and I'm going, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Let's go. Let's jump. And my husband's holding on to the side going, I don't think this is a good idea. I said, it's going to be great. We're going to do this. And the journey down is going to be wonderful. It's going to be a great flight. I said, the only problem is the landing. And if God doesn't show up, we're in trouble. But He always shows up. It may
Yeah.
not look like what we were expecting, but He always shows up when we use our faith muscle and we're trusting Him and we're walking through, and letting Him open and shut doors. So that's what I think as a leader. I mean, that's the most valuable thing I have to give my people is them being able to watch me walk through difficult things. Not that I mean, I'm very transparent with them. I don't dump everything on them, but I'm very transparent that yeah, this is a struggle and you need to pray for me or you need to, support me this way or whatever, but it's hard and together we can learn how to do all this. And so
Mhm.
I think, that is, that vulnerability is extremely important for them to know that, yeah, I struggle too. And I'm not some superhero. I've just learned that my faith muscles got to be really strong.
Yeah.
And this is how I get it. And so, and in your story, I've seen that in some of the stuff that was written that you wrote that it took
Mhm.
learning to do that, right? From that perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. It was definitely not an easy journey, but God had a plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, just on a personal note, how old are your nine children now?
They are 33 down to 20.
Oh
So
wow. Okay, so that's good. That's amazing. That's
we're
amazing.
on to we're on to grandbabies. And I think those grandbabies, they rock. So
Oh yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. That's so exciting. Oh, thank you so much. This was such a lovely conversation, Debbie. Now, how can people connect with you? How can they get in touch with Anchor Point if any of that part of the story resonated with them?
Yes. Okay. So for Anchor Point, it is simply just go to anchorpoint.us
Okay.
and you'll be able to find the website super easy. And then for me, the website is thedebbieSimmons.com. And there they can find, if they want to read the book, The Heart of Legacy, which is the book that I have, tells you all the rest of the inside story on building Anchor Point and leaving a legacy in your business, in your family, in your life, and how you can do it from a perspective of being faithful and fearless and focused. And I think that, that's what I want to see in people. And I know that's your heartbeat is that I want people to be difference makers. And
Mm.
so, what does it take for us to go to the next level? And that book is just a great way to do that. Has a lot of practical application in it, and it also has a lot of stories of Anchor Point at the end. But you can see all that on the DebbieSimmons.com, theDebbieSimmons.com, and then all of the social media handles are on there and everything too.
Right. Yeah. And I'll make sure that I put that in the show notes as well. So it'll be easy clickable for any of the listeners who
Yeah.
might be driving at the moment. So they can they can go and click that as soon as they get home. No, thank you so much, Debbie. This was such an amazing conversation and a very valuable one, as I think of all the guests. So I've had a lot of guests on the show, but I think some of your points that you shared from a CEO perspective are so actionable and practical. It's things that
Mm.
they can literally go and implement as of today or tomorrow, whenever it is for them now. So thank you so much for that. I think that was amazing. And
Yeah.
if the listeners, please go and support Debbie, go buy her book. I'm going to go buy your book because I can't wait to read. I can't wait to
Yeah.
read all of that. And I think I still love learning, even though I'm teaching now. I'm in
Hmm.
mainly a teaching role and a training role. I still love learning from others. So this was very valuable for me as well. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, we'll speak again soon.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Debbie Simmons. It was just so refreshing, and her take on things are really unique. And that's why I love having various guests on the show so that you can see other people's perspectives. Now, just another reminder to go and check out the Imposter Syndrome Blueprint. You can go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/blueprint, and you can go and see the amazing and insanely good value you're going to get out of this blueprint. You are going to get a step-by-step guide on how to overcome your imposter syndrome. So I cannot wait to hear the difference that this is going to make for you, and how many of you are going to come to me and say, yes, God did it. I overcame my imposter syndrome. Because again, it's not me that's so amazing. These are all Holy Spirit downloads that I'm sharing with you in this private podcast. So to get access to the private podcast, go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/blueprint. I look forward to chatting with you again in the next episode. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.